Yeah, do have fun. I haven't gotten any emails to the Heart of Iowa.
Are we ready to let everybody in, or what's?
What is it, 7?
Mhm.
It's 7:01.
7:01.
I say let's go ahead. There's over 30, so that's good. And I'm gonna pull up my script here if I can find it. Tell me when they're all in. Hi, everybody. My name is Kathy Focht. I'm the chair of the Iowa County Democrats. And I want to thank you all for joining us tonight on behalf.
Got these Coralville, Red Rock, Grafflin, Centerville. They are based on years.
Could everybody mute themselves before we go further? Okay. On behalf of the Heart of Iowa Dems and the Southwest Iowa Democratic Collaborative, thanks for joining us this evening. We got together a couple months ago in January and co-hosted a forum for candidates running for the IDP elected offices. And we thought we should get together again and let you speak directly with the winner of that election, the newly elected chair, Rita Hart. Before we start,
Did we just lose Kathy?
That looks like it.
Okay. Well, I'm Jackie Cordell with the Southwest Iowa Democratic Collaborative. So she was just going to go over the pieces at the bottom. You know, you've got the chat. You can open your chat. We'll save it and send it to you later if you want. I was not ready, so my hair looks crappy, guys.
You look great. You look great, Jackie.
Anyway, there are somebody watch the waiting room. Be sure to let Kathy in, will you? You have the chat, the meeting chat over that you can put, and it'll often come up to the right of your screen, and you can save the chat. It'll show up. There's 3 little dots down below. It'll show up on your computer in a file that says Zoom. It just like created it for me anyway. I'm also running captions, and I'm going to save the captions so we can send out the captions in the chat at the end. You know, to kind of give you a backup of what's going on. But I'm not sure. I know that Kathy wanted to promote that you guys, Sarah, you want to talk about, or do you know about the event?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Jackie. As I was getting everything set up, if anyone's having a hard time logging on, we're also live streaming to Heart of Iowa Facebook page. So please make sure you like that page and follow, because it will also give some updates coming up soon with regards to different events going on in April for us. For Earth to Iowa is our event series coming up next. You can see all of those dates and topics now on your screen, and how you can register to be a part of those topics. So please register for those and save the dates on your calendar. So from here, up next, I wanted to quickly introduce myself and my co-host tonight. I'm going to have him introduce himself, but I'm Sarah Smith, and I am the chair of Poweshiek County Democrats. I did run for the Iowa House in both 2020 and 2022, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Joey, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm glad I prepared this short bio, so now I know what I'm talking about. I'm Joey Norris. I'm from down in Montgomery County, Iowa. Happy to be here with Heart of Iowa Democrats and also the Southwest Iowa Democrats. It's great to see our collaboration between two opposite sides of the state here, and both very rurally focused, and I'm happy to be here. I'm the former county party chair of Montgomery County for 2 terms. I guess that'd be 6 or 8 years, and former candidate in 2020 for state senate. So I'm happy to be here, happy to have a conversation with both Sarah and Rita.
Awesome.
I just got back.
Hi.
I didn't even know I was off. Did you guys get all the housekeeping stuff? Anything else? Obviously, you just continued on. So
Yep.
we're good.
No worries.
Good.
Kathy, we're glad
Excellent.
you're back.
I am too. Okay.
So up next, I am going to start it off by having the honor of introducing our guest tonight and giving a little bit of background about her. Rita Hart is a retired educator who served as an Iowa State Senator from the 49th District from 2013 to 2019. In 2018, as we all know, Hart ran for Lieutenant Governor of Iowa with Fred Hubble. And then we're very excited on January 29th, the exact date, 2023, Rita was elected to be the new chair of the Iowa Democratic Party. Rita was born in Charles City and earned an associate degree from Northern Iowa Area Community College, and then a Bachelor of Arts from University of Northern Iowa, and a Master of Arts from the University of Iowa. Before entering politics, like I said earlier, Rita worked as a public school teacher. Thank you for the time and love that you gave, I'm sure, to all your students at the Bennett Community School in Bennett, Iowa, and it was part of the Calamus-Wheaton Community School District. Rita and her husband also own and operate a farm as well. While Rita was in the Iowa Senate, she served on the Senate Agricultural, Economic Growth, Education, Local Government, and Veterans Affairs Committee. So Rita, thank you so very much for being here tonight. Wonderful to hear your bio. I hope I got most of everything, and we're really excited to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, Rita, you muted yourself.
Oh, but okay, there, now, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Are we good now?
Yes, we're good.
All right. So yeah, thanks so much, Sarah. And yeah, you've got pretty much all of that right.
Great. Good.
I would just add one thing, that the most recent thing that I have done, after the congressional race in 2020, then last year I started as the Clinton County chair, and that has been a valuable experience, I think, and it's going to be very helpful to me as we continue these conversations at the state level. And that's one thing that's really important to me, is to do a good job of empowering the county parties. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. I am glad to be here. It's nice to have so many interested people. It's the situation that we're in right now that makes it clear that we've got a lot of interested Democrats who want to make sure that we are doing everything we can to elect more Democrats and turn around the state of affairs that exists in Iowa, as we struggling with the decisions that have been made in the legislature to ban books, to take public tax dollars and put that into private schools rather than improving our public schools. So many decisions that are being made that we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to elect more Democrats, so that we can help the citizens of Iowa to have a better place to raise our children and to create the kind of economy and environment that we all are looking to create here in Iowa. So it's exciting to be here tonight with all of you. I've been on the job for just a little over 2 months, and I feel like a lot has happened in those 2 months. I know that you want to know some of the other people that are working hard on this task. Our senior staffer that is also being called the active executive director is Zach Minier, who served as my campaign manager for my congressional race. And before that, worked as campaign manager for Dave Loebsack. And most recently ran the winning campaign for Rob Sand. And so he's been a great partner with me to get on the ground running, putting out some great policy ideas and strategy ideas going forward. And we've managed to put that into a few documents that I know most of you have seen. If you haven't, let me know. We'll make sure you get that document, so that you get a good understanding of the things that we know need to change, and the strategy that needs to happen in order for us to feel like we are moving in the right direction. And so one of those things that we have accomplished already is to establish a steering committee. When I first looked at taking on this job, I found that to be something that would be a help to me as a chair is to have a smaller group of people that meet on a more timely basis, who can help provide direction and create a sounding board and a way for us to utilize people to create consensus across the Central Committee and therefore out to the rest of the state. And so that steering committee was created at our last Central Committee, that they were elected at our last state Central Committee. And the first steering committee will be happening tomorrow, first steering committee meeting. There's 5 members of the steering committee from the Central Committee, 1 from each of the 4 congressional districts and 1 from a rural county of less than 25,000. And then Zach Walls from the state Senate, Jennifer Confers from the House, and 1 representative of the statewide electeds, which in this case, of course, is Rob Sand, and myself. And I'm very much looking forward to meeting with those folks and starting a conversation that I think will not only give us the kind of direction that that I think will be very helpful, but also to create a strong partnership between the state leaders of and the state Central Committee and the IDP in general. And so one other thing that I know that you want to hear about is about the caucuses and what the status is as far as First in the Nation caucus is concerned. I know this is something that is of great concern to many of you. And I'm here to tell you that we're just going to have to be a bit more patient as this is not a done deal. You know, we know that the national, the DNC has voted on this, and that Iowa Democrats are not in this first tier according to that vote. But that vote is something that was done on knowing that there's many pieces that still have to get put into place in order for that to become reality. We have New Hampshire and Georgia who have state laws that have to be dealt with in order for them to be in that first tier. And we know that Iowa needs to follow their state law. And so it's a work in progress. We're submitting our delegate selection plan. That's going to be a process that is going to take a little bit more time yet. And so we'll see how that progresses. But the thing that I want to emphasize on this is that the exciting thing about where we are in this very unsure process right now is that we know that regardless of when the caucuses take place, we are going to change the process that we indicate our presidential selections. And so it will be a mail-in process where everyone will have all Democrats will have the opportunity to participate by requesting a presidential selection card, receiving that card in the mail, being given a window to return that presidential selection card, and before those results then are announced. And I think that this is this was put in place before I became chair. This is a process that's been being worked on by Scott Brennan and many others for almost 2 years now. But I think it's such a important thing for us to understand and to be excited about, because it's going to be much more inclusive. We're going to get rid of the complicated nature of the threshold, the 15% threshold, and that complicated formula that's been used. And instead, people can simply indicate who their presidential preference is. And people who work third shift, people who have small children, people who are elderly or unable to leave their home easily, especially at night, will now be able to participate. So I think that's going to be a really important improvement to our process. And I think it'll become a model for the rest of the country. And so I see there's a couple questions in here about ranked choice voting. We're still in process and figuring that all out, but we're excited about how exactly this is going to work, and we will let you know as soon as we get some of those wrinkles figured out.
That's
And I think I've probably gone over time, so
That's
I'll
okay.
I'll stop there.
No worries. That is great. Anytime that we hear of more access for people to vote, the better. So first and foremost, thank you for that, to allow for more people to vote, because not everyone, is available during that time. And like you said, especially kids with families, that goes kind of late into the night, it's pretty hard. Or maybe you're working that shift and it's hard to get off work as well. So the more options we have for voting, the better. So thank you. And I also, as we saw in the chat too, a lot of people loving the idea of a steering committee. Thank you for putting that into place. I am excited to see where that goes to, and definitely gives us even more of a voice and access to allow for our thoughts and comments to go to the Iowa Democratic Party. So again, thank you for opening those avenues so we can be in better conversation with each other to move to a better place. So I love it that everyone's getting active in the chat. Please start to put your questions in there and keep them rolling. Even if we don't get to all of your questions tonight, we certainly will grab those questions. And for those of you that did submit questions as well, we have passed those along to Rita and her team, so they are aware of what those are and know the questions that people are thinking about and asking in the state of Iowa. So with everything, a bunch of different topics, Joey and myself and the other individuals who are organizing this chat tonight thought it would be best if we kind of move this a little bit more focused, and we came up with 4 different topics. So tonight we're going to talk about, and this is also based off of the questions we got too, but fundraising, branding and messaging, connection to rural Iowa, and then relationship to county parties. So sorry if anyone's doing, oh darn, nothing that I wanted to talk about. Again, put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that those questions and thoughts get to Rita and her team. So I'm up first, Rita, and I'm up first and last, and then I'm going to toss it over to Joey. My first question, the topic area first off for me that I really wanted to talk with you about is about fundraising. Yes, we're all excited about that, Rita. And as someone who ran for office recently, I know how important it honestly is for both candidates and for the party itself to fundraise. But it's also really it's difficult. It's a hard task. It's a task that you need to consistently be at all the time. So I'm wondering if you can talk with us a little bit about your plans, the Iowa Democratic Party's plans, but then also I hope that the conversation tonight can also be about us together as a state of Iowa. So know that the questions, that I'm asking you, I'm also wanting to know, how do we get involved? How do we help further what you're wanting to do, Rita? Because I don't think we can do it as different segments in the state. We need to do it together. So let us know about your fundraising and how we're gonna, what you're planning on doing.
Yeah, could not agree with you more on that, Sarah. And fundraising is a place where we've had to, jump in there and get going right away, because we are in a situation where our the financial situation of IDP definitely needs a good, strong fundraising approach right now. And so totally agree with you, Sarah. We've got to involve as many people as possible. And I'm a big believer that everything we do at IDP needs to have a team approach. And even though we need staff in order to implement certain things, that staff should only be working with volunteers and grassroots people in order to get their tasks accomplished. So when it comes to fundraising, I made it clear before running for this position that I believe that we need to just have one major fundraiser in Des Moines and do that one upright. Have it be a fun event and as big and as successful event as possible in the big city of Des Moines. But I also think it's important that we have smaller fundraising events across the state. And so so a couple things here. I discovered that the State Central Committee has a small group, a committee that's called Small Dollar Donor Committee. And that's a great group of people who wanted to get to work right away. And so we are putting them together to work on those small dollar donations versus doing things digitally, et cetera. And we just recently got on board a staff member as a finance manager. And so you'll soon get to know Kevin Sokovic, who is you'll be getting to meet him, and he's hitting the ground running, helping those folks with the small dollar donors. And then for mid-range donors, I've asked some people who have a working knowledge, have had to run campaigns, have had to raise money in the past, who are well-respected folks, Democrats in the state, people like Liz Mathis and Christina Bohannon and Sally Peterson and Mike Gronstel. And I think we'll be adding a couple more who have already helped us with those mid-dollar efforts to have these fundraising events across the state, but also to be making those individual calls. And then those people will also be helping me with the high dollar donors as well. And the good news is that we can announce right now that in the month of March, we were able to surpass the amount of money raised in IDP history for an off year month of March. And so we've gotten to work. We've had some success, and we're going to build on that success going forward. We had one of those fundraisers that has already happened in Iowa City with the help of many people, and hosted by Potluck Insurgency out of Iowa City, a very successful fundraising event. Those are the kinds of things we're going to be doing all across the state. And again, it's going to be a big team effort.
Well, congratulations on last month.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That is not done by just sitting around and hoping that people see some social media ads and things like that. So that is fantastic. I do want to just couple different things that are in the chat real quick, and then we'll move on to the next subject. But one of the things that you mentioned early on is you talked about volunteers helping in for fundraising. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're thinking about? Who are those volunteers? Are those things that county parties can start to be on the lookout for, and emails coming from the state, or how would someone sign up to volunteer if they're interested?
Are we talking specifically about fundraising, Sarah?
Yeah, for fundraising.
Yeah. So there again, we'll be, we'll be getting into at the county level and working through the districts, but we'll be communicating via the emails, and then through the ambassador program, the IDP chair ambassador program that I think we can talk about in a little bit coming forward. But we're going to have that communication going back and forth so that definitely people will know how to get involved and how to be helpful in these fundraising events. And if people want to host or want to have good ideas about where these fundraising events should be held, we're all ears on that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that was going to be my other thing, Rita, is while you stated a significant event in Des Moines, which it is our capital. I understand that not everyone always has a chance to go to Des Moines. I mean, I live less than an hour away, so that's a lot easier for me, but I do recognize the fact that not everyone lives as close. While it is our state capital, but I also heard you say that there will be fundraising events in other areas of the state as well. So thank you.
Yeah, all across the state.
Yeah.
And that's so important. I'm 2.5 hours from Des Moines, and I've made that trip, a lot of times, but yeah, it just makes, and it is a central location in the state, which is why I think it's important to have the largest fundraising event there. But we are really looking forward to these smaller events across the state. It's gonna get a lot more people involved, a lot more opportunity for people to not only raise money, but also to have interactions with fellow Democrats.
Love it. I think we need more and more of that every single year. So I love that.
Also,
Joe, go
also,
ahead, Rita.
Sarah, I see that, I see one of the staffers put in finance@iowodemocrats.org. You
Great.
can contact us there.
Oh, yep, I do see that. Yes. Fantastic. All right. Awesome. If you can put your questions in the chat, that would be awesome. So let's, Joey, at this point, I know we want to make sure we move on. Let's move on to branding and messaging. I'm going to toss it over to you.
Sure, great conversation so far. Thanks for being here, Rita.
You bet,
When you
Joey.
talk about fundraising, a successful fundraising seems to go hand in hand with successful branding and messaging. People give you money when they know what you stand for and they somewhat like you. At least they think maybe you're going to be successful. So how do you see that relationship between, as we make this bridge in our conversation here, the bridge between raising money and making sure we have a strong brand that not only is direct, so they know exactly what we stand for, but that can start getting us some ground so far as actually winning is concerned?
Yeah, there's so much conversation around that about communication in general, and then particularly about what is the Democratic, what do we stand for as Democrats, and especially when we contrast ourselves with the Republicans and what their message is, right? We want to have as strong a message, and so that's something that I think a lot of people are very interested that we get this and we get it right? So I want to recognize that that it's not necessarily IDP's job to create that message, but it is their job to amplify, to be a megaphone, and to make sure that we're doing everything to get to communicate the messaging down to the county level and back up. But we also have a responsibility, and this is what I think is exciting as we do make some of these changes, as we create these partnerships, not only with the counties and with individuals all across the state, but our other partnerships with the other entities that are working throughout the state to get more Democrats elected, right? And so we've got to be the entity that brings that all together, and then, like I say, amplifies that message and communicates it better. And I think that those things are moving in the right direction. I don't think it's going to happen overnight. We also have to recognize that as we get good candidates, and as those candidates not only are good people who are good communicators themselves, but they are running in particular districts where one message might be more powerful than another, that they won't all be trying to get across the same message, that again, that IDP has to take on that role of finding the common messaging that can go across, and being the amplifier for the messages in the particular districts, and trying to bring that all together. So, right now, I don't have much of a communications team yet. Just raising more money so that I can hire a few more staff. But I think that is definitely a priority. Communication is so important in today's way of campaigning, and for us to actually win elections. To your point, Joey, yes, we have to have a strong message. We have to run good, strong candidates who reflect the people that they are running to serve. And we have to bring that all together as the vehicle upon which we can get these people elected. And so, as we put this communications team together, we're really going to concentrate on that. And I hope that in a few months' time we'll have some really concrete things to talk to you about.
Awesome. And when you talk about the IDP not being the omnipresence of this is where everything generates and stays and emanates from, it seems that in the past that the IDP has been really hard to use as a tool. Even seems like it's almost just a secluded thing that none of us know anything about, but we always send them an envelope every caucus and with some money in it. So do you see any specific tools that the IDP can bring to bear as you're talking about messaging specifically for all the Democrats across Iowa?
Yeah, Joey, I think that that's really, I think that's a frustration that a lot of people have. And again, my little bit of experience that I've had just for almost not quite a year as the Clinton County Chair, I really have spent a lot of time thinking about that, about what kind of resources and what kind of help would be really effective for counties to get from the IDP, right? You know, we're a bit frustrated with the fact that that I've got great communications team here at the county level, but they feel like they're reinventing the wheel a lot, and that they're looking to the state to provide a template. You know, if they could say, if you could, you know, send us a template on what a good media plan looks like, right? Send us a good template on what a effective radio ad would be like in this cycle at this time. And what's how many, you know, what would you recommend as far as how many spots and how often to play them, and those kinds of decisions.
Give me all the answers.
That not every
Please.
county chair has the ability to understand or feel like they have any confidence in making. Those are the kinds of things that I think we can provide from the state level. And again, you know, we're going to really push hard on, we've already sent out this county party survey, and we've gotten really great information back. We've still got some counties that are still going through that reorganization process and haven't returned that survey yet. But we've already seen that there's a lot of information that we're getting from that we can really go to town on, as far as starting to create those kinds of alliances, and know that we need to provide more resources for this county in this area, and different set of resources for another county, right? And that overall, the kinds of what are our priorities going to be right away? That kind of information is going to help us to eventually get to that place where we have a system where nobody will say that again, Joey, where people will say, no, we are connected, man. We know what the IDP has to offer, and we know how to access it, and we've put it into play, and we feel like we're doing a much better job this year than we did last. That's the goal.
Well, certainly some encouraging energy you have there, Rita, and I appreciate it. And I know Sarah wants to dig more into specifically how the IDP relates with the county parties. But it seems, especially in the era of, you know, post MAGA-ism, hopefully post, what is really good when you say we want to be as good as Republicans, I think you're aiming a little low. We have so many good things to really talk about. How is the IDP going to specifically deploy those good messaging and branding topics to everybody? And it doesn't have to be a county party, it doesn't have to be any sort of organized Democratic entity. How is somebody that message resonates with going to share it, going to promote it, going to talk about it at coffee at the gas station in the morning?
Well, this is where I think we've got to create good partnerships and start with good data, right? Because we can't just knee-jerk reaction on what our message is going to be. And so we are working hard on those partnerships, and know that as we have these conversations between the state and the counties, between the state and our other partners, that we are getting a hold of research that tells us when a message is resonating and when maybe that message is not the right one. And again, that's going to take some time, energy, and resources to get done. Right now, I just don't have the staff that we're able to get started on that, but that's coming soon. You know, our communications hires are going to be next, and you're gonna. And that's, again, everything I believe that we put out as a message that comes from the IDP ought to be backed by research, so that we know that it moves the needle.
Right. So how do you, I know you don't have the staff and you might not have analyzed this very thoroughly yet, but it seems like, especially out here in rural Iowa, I'm getting a little tired of getting kicked all the time. And especially now with what's happening in Iowa, we have some really big, heavy hitters that we can attack on. Vouchers are wildly unpopular. Abortion on the personal rights part, wildly unpopular. How do we mobilize people to go more on the offensive?
we do have to give them not only the issue, but how do we talk about that, right? What's the way we talk about it that's going to resonate with folks that we know are not presently voting our way, right? We've got to have a message that turns the tide. So I understand that pretty well. I live out here in the rural part of Clinton County. I've seen the change, from the time I was elected in 2012 to today is a big change, right? And I tell people I drive out of my driveway here, and if I turn one way, there's a Go Brandon flag. If I turn the other way, there's several not nearly as nice sounding words on other flags, right? So
Yep, I've seen them all.
yeah, and there's a lot of them, and that's one part of the problem. I think it's why, again, I'm a big believer that if we're going to make a difference in rural Iowa, it's got to be by conversations, connections, introductions. I was talking to a seed cord salesman the other day who is not one of the big guys, not DeKalb or Pioneer, right? And he talked about how their training says you have got to talk to a farmer 3 times before they will even listen to you, because you're not the popular team, right? And that's what I think we have got to take to heart, that if we're going to do better in rural Iowa, and I would say we don't have to win in these rural counties, we have to quit bleeding so badly, right?
I'd take a win.
We've got to bring that margin back to closer to 60-40 than it is in so many of our counties. And so to do that, we've got to do the hard work of connecting to other rural voters. And I tell this story too, because a couple of years ago, I was getting people getting Democrats to sign petitions in a couple small towns here. And I had the same conversation all the time. They said, well, you won't spend much time here because there's just 2 of us Democrats, me and Charlie down the street, right? And I said, no, look, there's 3 pages of Democrats that live close to you. And they're shocked, right? We're not doing a good enough job of connecting Democrats to each other so that you don't feel like you're on an island, right? And that gives you the ability to get more involved and have more of those conversations. So there's all kinds of techniques we can use, and you're going to hear a lot more about it. But doing that hard work in these counties that we have lost, particularly the ones that we have lost recently, that's how we start winning back some votes to Democrats.
Right. And I'd love to just start by whittling down that margin, right, in rural Iowa. But I think I'd take a couple wins, here and there. I think Sarah and I could agree.
Gosh, yeah, let's do it. Yes.
So how specifically do we begin to reconnect with those rural folks? We see the same thing. We have the same 20 folks showing up to the county party activities. And earlier today, I was talking with my 7-year-old niece, and I said, well, I got a thing tonight about county parties and the state party. And she said, well, how often are you having parties? That's always the part of this that we kind of miss. I'm not sure parties are what are going to win us folks back. They sound fun, but how do we actually bring these people together with us to look them in the eye, especially now without the active caucus part, and say we share these values? Mailers aren't working, postcards aren't working. Letters to the editor might be swaying some minds, but they're not active. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I would say there's no one silver bullet, right? So we've got to hit it on several fronts. But again, if we can get to that county level and talk to one another, I have the same frustration with getting people involved, but you can't rely on an email or even a text messages are a little bit better, or a radio ad or whatever, to actually get people to show up. Mm-hmm. It takes a personal invitation, and sometimes it takes 2. And that's the hard work, right? Of taking the time to get on the phone, to leave that message, to be persistent, and to invite people to do very specific things, right? When you know that somebody in your neighborhood is interested in education, and you know they're incensed about something, it's one thing to say, hey, I know you're upset about this, you should get involved. And another thing to say, we're having a get together and we're bringing in so and so to talk about this education issue. Will you come that night, and will you bring some brownies, so that there's a a commitment there, right? But that's what it takes, and that's what I'm talking about. With 3 interactions, we've got to be persistent, and we've got to do several things, make it fun. I mean, I like that story, Joey, because sometimes I just think we got to be a little cooler, right? We can't be the boring people who sit around a table and yak all the time, right? We've got to bring in some interesting speakers. We've got to host some interesting events. We've got to do things that actually will engage people. And then we've got to take the time and the energy to do the reaching out that it takes, and to ask people to do something very specific.
Yeah, I agree. I know we can't take all of our wisdom from 7-year-olds, but if we're going to look
That's
at how
right.
my dad also says, where people go where they're invited and they stay where they feel welcome. And while we might not be able to have parties for everybody, we have to figure out, and I'm sure we'd all love to just return to boring politics, but we have to engage people in a fun way, right? I've seen a lot of people talking in the chat, and this kind of correlates with what our branding and messaging about radio. In rural, when we talk about how we're going to connect with rural folks the most, everybody's got some sort of a radio station on. Do you have any thoughts on how we break into the radio market? It's very expensive, but I feel like if we, again, use the IDP as some sort of a hub or a pool or a guiding force, at least, perhaps you might have some thoughts on it.
Well, I'd really like it if there was somebody here on the chat who had a couple $1 million laying around who could buy a radio station or 2. That'd be nice, right? Because that's, it's a huge problem for us, right? Nearly all of these radio stations in rural Iowa are owned by conservative entities. And even if that radio station is not political in nature, it doesn't have the political talk shows and stuff on it, the ads that are on there and the commentary that comes in between the songs is often a anti-democratic message. And so that's really hard for us to fight back on. But that's where, again, I think candidates can do this. I think county parties can do this, of finding out how they can't, take advantage of the community forums and things like that exist on these radio stations, and make sure that we are really you can buy, should be doing more of that. Yes. And just being involved, I think that's the other thing. I've probably felt more comfortable, or maybe had to show up at the local dairy farm when they're important, that we do those things. And we're not talking about it tonight, but a lot of that too has to do with the fact that we have not done a good job, I don't think, of local commissions, local boards like the library board and the extension council and the planning and zoning board. Those kinds of areas, we have to do a much better job of encouraging our fellow Democrats to step up into those positions and build that pipeline, because every one of those connections that we have then helps us to spread, helps us not be the outside.
On recruiting folks. And I think this is a great segue for Sarah to jump back in and talk about what the specific relationship is between the county parties and the IDP. I thank you for your time tonight, Rita.
Oh, thank you, Joy.
Okay, great. I hope everyone can hear me, because my system kind of crashed there for a little bit. So I guess it came back just in time. So hopefully everyone can hear me, and that's kind of scary for a second. All right. But I am back. So the last, man, this is exciting this evening. Who's going to stay on and who's going to get, gonna have low internet connection, which is another topic for another time in rural Iowa. So Rita, the last thing that I wanted to talk with you more about was relationship to county parties. As someone who's not been as close to the leadership for our county parties as I am of lately, party, you just kind of watching the relationship that we might have to the state party. And again, like we talked a little bit about earlier, it's kind of this thing in Des Moines that happens and we're not really sure. It's a place that we can, that we, like you said, send results in for some caucuses with some money once in a while, and truly trying to forge a better relationship with that, with the Iowa Democratic Party. And of course, when we have candidates come by, that's we can have leadership the state party. But let's talk more about some ways that we can connect in more than just election years, Rita. I had a good question that came in, excuse me, about how their county group will be having a visioning planning session. And I really liked how this person asked then, how can we align with some of our values and priorities that are being talked about the state with what's happening at the local county level. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, first, I'm going to guess, first of all, making sure that they're seeing what the Democratic Party is wanting, the priorities at the state level, but then thinking about themselves at more of a county level. How can we work to align both of those a little bit closer? What are some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think that's why I'm pretty excited about this IDP Chair Ambassador Program. And is Greg Christensen on here? I can't see the whole group here. So is he on here by chance?
I'm on.
As if he is.
Oh, yep.
He's on.
Okay, I'm gonna let Greg talk. I'm gonna give you a little intro here, Greg, but that is why I'm excited about establishing this IDP Chair Ambassador Program, because I'm such a strong believer that that we have not empowered county parties nearly enough. And if we can empower them, they're going to create great results for us. If we can help county parties to have the resources, to have the mission, to have the organizing ability to drive out the Democratic vote, if we can do a good job of that with the county parties, then it's so much easier for the campaigns to come in and concentrate on the persuadable audience and the unreliable Democrat and those Republicans who can be swayed over to our side. But we've got to get the counties to get the Democratic vote out so that those campaigns don't have to worry about that. And so that's why we put out a county party survey. We want to know where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and then we're going to create this relationship of communication so that we can figure out how best to make that happen. And so Greg, take it away. Tell them how it's going to work.
All right, thank you, Rita. Yeah, so as Chair Hart was saying, we've been developing a program called our Chair Ambassador Program, and this is really meant to just streamline communication and make sure that there's a strong conduit between our county parties and the state party. I was just reading through a pamphlet that was handed out to county parties from the state party in 1998. And there's a great line where it says that the foundation of a strong state party is the county party. And I know that, Chair Hart and I think that is definitely how we need to help strengthen our state party, from river to river and state line to state line, is to make sure that our county parties are thriving and that they have every resource that we have available at the state level, and that they have the ear of Rita and everyone else at IDP, and so that we can make the necessary changes at the state level that support the work that all of you are doing as part of your county central committee, and all the work that is being done in your county that's outside of the central committee as well, because there is Democratic activity even in some of those counties that currently don't have a central committee. So we're trying to identify some good and very trusted names of folks that can step up into this role, people that will be able to act as that liaison between the county central committee and the state party, and make sure that everyone is aware of the resources available, and that Chair Hart, myself, and the rest of the executive board and the steering committee at IDP know about the challenges that you're facing and the opportunities and lessons learned from the process as well. So we're excited about it. And Chair Hart has a great plan of action for us here, and I'm proud to work with her on it.
Thanks, Greg. And what I know will happen out of this, because there's so many good ideas. I mean, I'm just zipping through the chat right now, and there are so many good ideas out there, right? And this is a way for us to glean some of those ideas, because the idea is that this ambassador is going to get to know each of those counties well, and create that kind of relationship so that we can bring those good ideas. And then Greg's going to do an awesome job of training those ambassadors and debriefing them every month so that we can actually get our hands on those good ideas and put them into play. And just great things are going to just erupt out of that just very naturally. So I think, again, it's so important that we get this right. And I also see some comments in the chat that people recognize that this is this is not rocket science. It's not like nobody's ever thought of these things before, but we haven't, they're not where they should be right now. And it's going to take us time to get there, but we're going to work hard every single day until we get to a better place. And then we're going to keep working after that. So, and again, these off years are so important. That's when the important work takes place. As a candidate myself, I knocked doors in these off years, and it was so much more fruitful than during a campaign, mainly because of trust, right? You knock on somebody's door during an election cycle, they expect you to be there, and they aren't impressed by that. And it's a whole different attitude. But if you knock on their door in an off year, they're like, what are you doing here? Huh? You must kind of care about what you're doing. You must be doing this for the right reasons, right? That's the kind of notion that we've got to get as a party. That's the branding that we're looking for, is that we know how to work hard and we care about the communities in which we live. And so branding to me is a lot about in action. What are you doing to deserve the brand you have?
Your comment earlier, there are a lot of good ideas that are going through the
So
chat,
many
right now. So keep them coming. It's really great to see all these comments. I do think your comment about these off years are so important. I feel like I've noticed recently we're at 110% to not that, a lot less in the off years, and it just feels like a bit of a race of run and stop. So I think not just election years, but this working through these years and leading up to the election, so we're not just exhausted during that time, and building organizations and connections to the state party. I think there's a lot of good comments going in the chat too about radio and with relationships to county parties and the counties themselves too. Rita, I want to say real quick, I think I have some ideas about here, maybe locally, because I'm one that I'm really tired of listening to the same rhetoric from the Republican Party, and I would like to make sure that people hear from both sides. So I think as we can, like I said earlier, just keep the comments going in the chat of some ideas and make sure that we're connecting to our state party. So Rita, I'm going to turn it over to you for some last comments. And I want to thank you for being here, because after you, we're going to toss it back to Kathy, who I hope has internet connection still, and we'll leave from here. But I really value your time and your vision for the state Democratic Party. And thank you for being here this evening.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Joey. I feel like, the time goes fast because the questions are good, and the comments in the chat are just, very informative for me as well. It's really good to know what people are thinking, what they're prioritizing, where their frustrations are. And I feel like we're all on the same page, that we were very disappointed in November. We're downright depressed. But we're going to make sure that we're going to do everything we can to turn this around. So I talked to every other group that I've talked to so far about how I look at this in general, that I think one of the reasons why people have faith in me in stepping up to this position is because they know I know how to work hard. You know, they look at my background, they've seen that I don't give up, that you know, I've got some stick-to-itiveness. And I think many of us, you know, either you grew up on a farm or you know somebody who grew up on a farm, and you have an understanding that you almost have to learn how to work hard when you grow up on a farm. And that was true for me. You know, that's where I feel like I got some good lessons. And so when I look at this task at IDP, it reminds me of my dad, who used to always say, nothing worthwhile comes about without hard work. It's an old Teddy Roosevelt saying that he used to always pull out, particularly when he wanted us to do some horrible task that nobody wanted to do, and that seemed like, what is the point, right? And so he used to say it a lot when we have to pick up rocks. You know, this is a farm up in northern Iowa, and I know some of you have had this experience where you've had to go out and pick up the rocks. And so we'd I have 8 brothers and sisters, and the 10 of us would go out there and look at this big field that seemed full of rocks, and you think, what is the point? You know, it's just overwhelming, and it's hot and it's sweaty, and you know, all those things. And away we'd go. And it didn't take too long for us to understand that maybe we didn't think about it, but Dad thought about how every single rock that we picked up was one fewer rock that would that would dent up a disc, or mess up a piece of machinery, go through a combine. It meant a lot for us to do this task. And we soon learned that you have your job to do, right? You leave the smaller ones for the little kids, you leave the bigger ones for the bigger kids, and you find the rock that you can handle, and you get it up on that hay rack, and you work like a team across that field. And then Dad would always make sure we looked back and said, see, you made a difference. Now, the job's never done. There's always more rocks out there, but you did your part, right? And sometimes you had to work as a team because those rocks are huge, and it took 4 or 5 of you to push and shove and pull and get it into that tractor loader, you know. But that's how I look at this, that it's hard, hot, sweaty work, but everybody has a rock to pick up. Everybody has their job that they can do. They're not all the same size. They're not all in the same place. They're not always suited for every person, but you know what you can do, or you need to find what you can do, and it's going to make a difference. And that's how we've got to look at it. Nothing worthwhile comes about without hard work. And right now, that's what we've got in common. We all recognize how important this work is, how worthwhile it is to turn around the many terrible things that we're seeing happen legislatively here in Iowa, and how we want to work as a team to make it a better life for everyone. And so we're going to do that at IDP, and I've been nothing but encouraged by the response I've gotten from folks. So let's all pick up that rock, get it on that rack, and let's get this done.
Thank you so much, Rita. It's been great, and I hope everybody remembers to make a copy of the chat room, because there is a lot in there. Also, I want to thank Sarah and Joey for joining us and moderating. They were terrific. And some behind the scenes people, Genevieve, Pat, and Jackie. Just a quick reminder, this recording is being recorded on the Facebook, so you'll be able to find that recording there for Heart of Iowa, and I believe also in the Southwest Iowa Democratic Collaborative Facebook page, as well as YouTube tomorrow. Genevieve, can you slap up that one slide I had on the screen? I just wanted to tell you guys about a Heart of Iowa event that's coming up. We're going to do a 4-week series called Earth to Iowa, or Earth Month. It will roll out on April 19th, which is this Wednesday before Earth Day. And we're going to cover 4 different climate related topics, starting on Wednesday the 19th. That will be what's in your water, followed by what's in your air, what's in your soil, and what's in your food over the next 3 Wednesdays. Registration for those events should be, it was supposed to be live by the end of the call tonight, but it's not. I just checked it. But the registration is heartofiowadems.com/register. So check that tomorrow. You should be able to register. And I will also include that information in the email that will go out tomorrow with the links to tonight's events. I think that's it for tonight. I would encourage you donating to the Iowa Democratic Party, which you can do via Act Blue. You can donate to the Heart of Iowa Democrats. I put that in the chat room earlier tonight. And I'm sure you can donate to the Southwest Iowa Democratic Collaborative somehow too. So if you have any questions about how to do any of the above, you can also just contact me at Heart of Iowa. It's been great. Thank you all for being here, and hopefully see you on April 19th.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
And stop recording.